Good afternoon, everyone. This is Nina Stack, President of the Council of New Jersey Grantmakers. Very pleased that you could join us again for our Monday calls. Today we've got a very full docket with a lot of folks who have taken the time to join us. And so we want to get to that, but I want a little bit of housekeeping before we do. We are having our call today, the 14th. Next Monday, we will take a break for the holiday and then resume again on January 28th. I'm very pleased that on the 28th, we're actually going to have a webinar, and we will send out the information for that webinar in advance. Denise Gilliam and her team at FEMA's Long-Term Recovery and Capacity Group are going to be talking us through their work and their plans and what they've been putting together. So I'm really pleased that we're going to be able to provide this. And then for those of you who aren't able to join us, we will record, as we always do, and you'll be able to see and hear the webinar after the fact. All of the calls that we've had, just as a reminder, all of the calls that we have had since these started back the week after the storm, actually, we have recorded and on our website so that you can go ahead and listen to any of them. And there's been just incredible amounts of great information that's been shared, and today we'll continue that without a doubt. I want to also mention that we are putting together the plans for our site visit in Monmouth and Ocean counties with thanks to Kathy Durante and the Ocean First Foundation and also PSEG. We are very pleased that we're going to be able to do this. Now, Kathy has been wonderfully supportive and is helping us in designing the site visit and where we'll go and identifying some of the key people that we will have speaking to folks. And through support that we receive from PSEG, we're going to be able to make sure we've got a good bus for everybody. And it will be a day-long site visit. We will begin, I believe, in Toms River in the morning, and we will go to 3 different locations and are looking at having as many as 10, perhaps as many as 15 different people helping to give context, provide information, and help all of the funders who can participate understand what's going on the ground and what some of the thinking is and what some of the longer-term needs are. So that will be on February the 26th, and we have a snow date or weather date of March the 7th, but hopefully we won't need that. Registration information will be going out on the listserv for that probably the end of this week or the beginning of next. It will be limited because we've got a bus, so we only have so many seats. And so we are going to ask that at least to start, if no more than 2 people from an organization would register, and then we'll also we'll keep a wait list if there's extra room for others. So the other thing I wanted to let people know is that we are I'm getting closer to having the meeting with Mark Frazan, who's the Executive Director of the Governor's Recovery Office, and I think that's going to take place at the end of this week. If not at the beginning of next week. But we're getting closer to that, and I'm hopeful that he or one of his senior team will be able to join us soon for one of our calls. And I also have been in touch with Cam Henderson from Governor Christie and Mrs. Christie's Recovery and Relief Fund, and she is going to be able to be joining us in early March for one of our calls to talk about what where those funds will be going toward. So with that, I'm going to ask if Margaret Waldock from the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation has joined us. You can unmute your phone by pressing *7. And I'm really pleased, Margaret, that you could join us to spend just a few minutes talking about some of the highlights from a meeting that you and others from the Dodge Foundation had with some of the environmental leaders.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to take a few minutes. I know you've got a full agenda on today's call. And just bring everyone up to speed. At the beginning of this year, January 3rd, the Dodge Foundation hosted a conversation with a variety of folks, mainly from the environment nonprofit community, but also some people whose names kept kind of creeping up in media stories, and also some of the folks that are really starting to emerge as leaders on this recovery discussion. And we invited about 40 folks, and I would say that we were pretty close to full participation in that meeting. It was a packed room. And we also had some of our funding partners involved in that conversation as well. And the purpose was really to get some information and feedback from this community on sort of the emerging priorities and issues that they see, particularly as it pertains to infusing resiliency into the recovery process. And resiliency not just from the community perspective, but also resiliency for national systems as well. So this was a facilitated conversation. Michael Catania from Conservation Resources led us through the conversation, and there were some observations and some interesting emerging kind of ideas on how philanthropy might help support some resiliency in this recovery effort going forward. So I would say that what became clear to me is that there's already some natural coalitions and collaborations that are starting to form, and that these groups that are already starting to get together and have the conversation about how they involve themselves they're already out there. So we've got a bunch of environmental organizations that started to kind of form a loose coalition, and they're referring them to themselves as having been involved in the Keyport meetings. These are groups that came out with a very short list of priorities that they want the state decision makers to consider in protecting the environment and natural systems going forward. There's also, a number of groups that were involved in the conference at Monmouth University. Keep It Green Coalition, many of you are aware of this group that are involved in the preservation funding question. This is very much on their minds as they go into this year and hoping that there'll be a stable source of revenue for land preservation. Buyouts could become a part of this recovery process, and funding, of course, will be critical to that. I would say that I'm very encouraged, Nida, to hear that you have potentially a meeting with Mark Berzan, because I would say that there's an overall frustration over the lack of access to this office and sort of lack of information coming out of the state's office, but hopefully that's starting to clear up, and there'll be opportunities to meet with Mark Berzan and his staff and understand what their priorities are going forward. There seems to be, from the conversation, some general organizing categories for work kind of emerging. There's the sense that there needs to be some sort of an advocacy effort underway to really focus on informing and reforming decision-making so that resiliency is a part of community recovery, and really looking at what the short-term and long-term opportunities are for that. There's definitely a need, they feel, for data and information that can inform those advocacy efforts and decision-making. For example, people really felt that it would be useful to know what worked well in the storm as far as communities that had, robust dune systems that helped protect them from the damage of the storm. So where are those success stories in the region that we could use as case studies going forward on how to really prepare for these events in the future? People felt that there would be useful lessons coming from demonstration projects that were focused locally or regionally on how to plan for resiliency going forward, with vulnerable communities being a priority in that. And also, I think there was an overwhelming sense that communications is going to be key to this recovery effort. There's definitely a fear that once the initial sort of shock of the storm kind of went away and we started entering this more long-term slog of recovery, that we really needed to keep the stories in the media, that we really needed to continue to keep the issues at the forefront so that we didn't lose sight of the long term, really, of what this means for New Jersey. So where they felt that philanthropy could have the most impact, we had them identify, where they felt we could have the most impact would be in keeping equity a part of the conversation when we're talking about recovery, making sure that those that are often disenfranchised or don't have a voice do. Collaboration, supporting collaborations and coordination was also something they felt that the philanthropic community could help with. Using our dollars to add value to federal and state funding. For example, if there's a gap that would bring green infrastructure solutions to the forefront, that perhaps that's something that philanthropic dollars could do, covering a gap that public funding won't. Helping keep the long-term view and a broad focus on recovery efforts beyond just coastal communities who are at the forefront of people's minds, because that's where the most immediate damage happens, but really looking broader than just those communities. And then also to that point of what research and data can we support that can help serve the recovery effort. So it was definitely a well-received meeting, and we're hoping that we can continue to communicate this group and really what our hope was is that we could take this information and help inform the direction that the New Jersey Recovery Fund might take, the New Jersey Recovery Fund being this pooled source of funding that the Dodge Foundation and the Community Foundation of New Jersey have pulled together along with many of our other funding partners, where we might focus those dollars going forward.
Great. Thank you, Margaret. I want to, if someone has an immediate question directly related, you could unmute your line by pressing *7. I have one, Margaret, if you and I can continue to be in touch and maybe a way for people that would want to stay plugged in on those conversations, we can figure out a mechanism for that or who they can be in touch with.
Yes. Can do that.
Great.
Still figuring that out.
Great.
But
right.
Certainly if anybody has any questions, they can contact me directly.
Okay. Well, thank you, Margaret. And you can press *6. That'll mute your line again. And then now I'm going to, we'll turn to the rest of our program for today and ask that Kathy McCann is joining us once again. Kathy, as you'll recall, has been right in the center of all of this as the president of the New Jersey VOAD groups, and she is also vice president of operations for the Community Food Bank of New Jersey. We've asked Kathy to just give a little bit of an update briefing for us, and then we'll get into hearing briefly again from each of the long-term recovery folks that are involved with the long-term recovery committees that way. So, Kathy, you can unmute your phone by pressing *7.
I think I'm there already.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Okay.
Great to hear your voice again. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Thank you for inviting us. I'll be real quick because you're going to hear less and less about New Jersey VOAD or the VOAD community and more about the long-term recovery, because that's really what we're focusing on, trying to help facilitate the long-term recoveries getting started. And I know they'll each talk about the different counties and where they are with their long-term recoveries. But one of the things we are we're doing this week is we're having 3 trainings in the state, one north, central, and south, to help facilitate the long-term recovery and what it is and how you go about it. It's called Tools and Training, and they're taking place again this week. And we had quite a we have over 100 people at the one in Toms River and 100 at another, and so they're really building up, and we expect to be training a lot of the faith-based and other groups, the local community groups that are part of the long-term recovery in a lot of different areas. So the other thing is we are working to try to facilitate some conversation between these committees, long-term recovery committees, so that they can talk across county lines, and trying to set up those kind of calls on donations management and case management, and so they can share best practices. Otherwise, it's really all about the long-term recovery groups. And the other thing we're working on is probably volunteers and volunteer housing. Just some news that we'd like to share with you is that there's been over 480 volunteer organizations that have already been working here in New Jersey, and we're trying to capture all their volunteer hours and So far we've captured about 25 groups, and that's added a value of this recovery to over $20 million in volunteer labor that has gone into mucking out houses and helping out in feeding and doing all kinds of things on the ground there. And that's only, as I said, it's only 25 of the 480 volunteer agencies that have reported in so far. So we're working on trying to capture those hours too. The grant applications for the New Jersey Sandy Relief Fund are out now, and the long-term recovery groups are applying for those grants for the seed money to get them up and running. And we're just moving along. And volunteer housing is a huge issue that we're working on. Housing in New Jersey is an issue at all times, but we have lots of groups from across the country who want to come in, colleges who want to come in for spring break, and volunteer housing is a challenge right now. So we're working on that. And that's really all I have to say.
Great. Thank you, Kathy.
All the work is happening in the long-term recovery.
There are two things that I just want to build on that you said. One with related to the volunteer hours, and the other with the governor's fund and the applications. The first with the volunteer hours. We're going to be sending out to on the listserv some guidelines with regard to volunteer hours, because depending on the type of volunteer work that is being done, municipalities can use those hours toward their match for the federal dollars.
Right.
And so we wanted to make sure that nonprofits are aware of this, and that are working in, deep in communities on the grassroots level. So understanding how they can make their hours eligible, which will overall help the community in terms of its match. There are definitely some specific guidelines and criteria for what counts towards that. So I just want to give people a heads up. You'll be getting that. We'd received it from Denise Gilliam, sent it to us from FEMA. And the other piece is that, yes, the governor's fund did begin making some grants specific for long-term recovery committees, and that there'll be a whole lot more of grant making that's happening. But at this point, it's my understanding that that's the only grant making that the fund has done at this point. And that if you want to track, they have a Facebook page, and apparently they're putting out a lot of information on the Facebook page that way. So that's where those grants are. But I think that's the only grant making that they've done at this point, and that's why in March Cam will be with us to talk more. So Kathy, anything else?
No, we just have the Business Civic Leadership Center that is also coming for a visit here next week, and we're going to be talking about the volunteer efforts there too, and how we work together.
Is there anything that you could send me on that? Because one of our members was asking me about it, and I didn't know that they were coming, and so that would be helpful if you could. So that's great. I am because I am hearing background noise. I want to encourage you that if you're not speaking, to press *6 to mute your phone. And I'm going to now start to introduce the folks who are leading the different long-term recovery committees, and I'm going to do this from north to south. So I'm hoping that Janet Sharma, the Executive Director of the Volunteer Center of Bergen County, is with us. And Janet, if you would press *7 and unmute your phone.
I'm already unmuted.
Terrific. Thank you. If you could just give us an update on where you are with the work of your long-term recovery committee.
Sure. The Volunteer Center started the VOAD back in 1999 after Hurricane Floyd. We did that at the request of the Red Cross. We had really ramped up for Hurricane Irene, but things weren't quite as there weren't as many funds available and so forth, so we were always waiting for funding to come through for Hurricane Irene, and then along came Hurricane Sandy. So we already had an organization and a structure in place, and we were ready to really hit the ground running. We have a good group of about 30 community partner organizations, each of which brings something to the table. And at first it was very fluid because in a disaster, as you know, all kinds of things are going on. Communication is unreliable, to say the least. And there were a lot of people flooding into the area to provide help. That's now settled into more of a pattern. The immediate mucking out and so forth and clearing out has been done. And now we're able to accept some teams of AmeriCorps to come in and actually start, and we're working right now in some mobile home communities in Moonachie and Little Ferry were the towns most impacted in Bergen County. There were a total of about 3,000 FEMA registrations from those two towns. They're lower income communities right along the Hackensack River that both suffered severe flooding. We also know there are a lot of undocumented people in those communities that wouldn't have filed for FEMA assistance. So right now we're kind of going with the premise that I heard Mark Zuckerberg say once about, it was the guy who started Facebook, that the opposite of perfect is done. And so we are just trying to get things done without making it quite so perfect yet. We're using whatever help we can wherever we can. And in the meantime, we're continuing to put together a case management structure, a reconstruction structure, a way to figure out how to store the wonderful donations that have been made available either through Aid Matrix or through the state warehouse, and getting our administrative act in order. All of things are kind of going on simultaneously. We've gotten about $50,000 in grants from local organizations and from some of the national VOAD member organizations, religious organizations. So that's going to help with some immediate needs that we had for materials and for providing very rudimentary staffing to get some of this work started. So that's where we are. We're in it for the long term, even though, it was not part of our plan, but here we are.
Thank you, Janet. We're going to open it up to questions when at the end when we've got everybody we'll have talked through.
Okay.
So thank you
I also do want to give kudos to Kathy. She has just done an outstanding job in keeping everybody informed and providing many, many resources for us, informational resources.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Janet. So now heading south, we'll go to Hudson County, and I'm hoping, Janet, you can mute your line by pressing *6, and I'm hoping that Dan Pillow, the Executive Director of United Way of Hudson County, is with us. You could press *7 to unmute. Dan, are you with us? Okay. Hopefully Dan can join us. Tony Moen.
Hello, I'm on.
Oh, Dan, you're here? Okay, Dan, you're with us. Great.
Sorry.
That's okay. So if you could just give us an update on
Sure.
where things stand with the Long-Term Recovery Committee there in Hudson County at this point.
Sure, absolutely. First off, when everything began to happen, there were simultaneous groups just jumping up, specifically in neighborhoods and in cities themselves that were being affected, especially down in Hoboken. Being a small town, everyone knows each other, so that committee got together real quick, as well as a downtown committee in Jersey City. And that committee has been very, very, from my understanding of, as far as getting the work done and starting to get out there, knocking on doors, casework. They're out there. They're not sleeping. They're really, working hard to try and meet the needs of the community that they have there. United Way, we started the county-wide committee because there's other areas that are not covered by the Jersey City and Hoboken committees. Our intention is to augment what they're doing locally, both with funds and support and everything else that we can bring to the table. So we did not have a VOAD active in Hudson County, although I'm going to say 2003 we started meetings, and we were meeting once a month over VOAD, and it just petered out. There's a lot of meetings, until it became just not worth going on. But we were part of that, so we were able to put all of those pieces that were there back around the table again. We have a meeting coming up in a week where Hudson does not have an interfaith organization. I think we're the only county that does not. We do have little groups of clergy that meet, and so we are trying to link all of that together in one mass meeting for coordination's sake. And that meeting's coming next week, and we're putting other people around that table as well, and including the Red Cross. So that's where it stands in Hudson County. I at United Way have devoted a full-time staff person to do and help in any way that we can on the coordination of this. and we also have a few grant applications out there. But I'll be honest with you, I really don't know what the need is right now. So, I almost hesitate until I have a better idea on what exactly people need. So that's Hudson's report.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we would like to get more information on the groups from, I didn't realize that there were already long-term recovery committee groups active in Hoboken and Jersey City. So we'll be in touch with you later to try and get connected with them. And please stay on the line, Dan, and we'll do more questions at the end. So now moving a little west over to Essex County, and Tony Mullen, who is the FEMA Voluntary Agency Liaison for Essex. Tony, are you with us? Press *7 to unmute your phone.
Hello.
There she is.
Hi.
Thank you.
I'm going to just give you a brief overview on Essex because it's very much still in progress, but I wanted to talk about it because there is a need, and it's in one of the more vulnerable areas of Newark. It's primarily focused around Newark. Two things are happening. The United Way of Newark is beginning to talk to their organizations about developing plans for some sort of a future disaster or long-term recovery organization in the Newark area. And alongside of that, we're also working in the Ironbound area and talking to some of the faith communities and the Ironbound Corporation about maybe getting a group together, and then eventually they could all merge. So at this point, we're on the ground knocking on doors and talking to folks, and nothing has really gelled yet. The United Way meeting is this week, and I'm hoping to be talking to a lot of the folks from the Ironbound area next week.
Well, keep us posted with that because we have a lot of funders who are on the ground there as well. So,
that's
want
great.
to know. So, thank you, Tony.
Yes.
So then, moving to Middlesex County, Maria Hunter, who is with Catholic Charities of Metuchen, and I believe one of the chairs of the Long-Term Recovery Committee there. Maria, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes, and this is the first time that we have a long-term recovery group. We tried for Hurricane Irene, didn't get it quite going, but we're making up for that now. We have about 37 agencies or organizations who are represented at our meetings. We've incorporated. We just received the disc today because we submitted the routine use letter to FEMA, and so now we have access to records that would help us reach out. Catholic Charities Diocese of Metuchen right now has been involved in case management, and everyone around our table knows that when they find that they've kind of gone through the resources they have available at this point, they're referring people now to our long-term recovery group. And so today the decision was made we need to hire one or two case managers for our group to make sure we're utilizing any funding that we have efficiently. And that's where the next step for us. Tomorrow we're actually going to have a meeting to get our budget together because so far we've had no direct contributions made to the table. And so we're going to begin to work on submitting the New Jersey Sandy Relief grant application and a Robin Hood Foundation grant application because Sayreville particularly and other areas, South River, there are a number of areas that were really households were hard hit. Some of them are still displaced. Some families lost 2 to 3 cars in a household, which is kind of interfering with people getting to work, and they're behind in mortgage payments. And so we really need that. That's our challenge now is to get funds to come to our table so that so we're able to offer that direct service. But we did already reach out to the Mennonite Disaster Services, and they're going to be coming to do a site visit and said that they're going to start coming to help some of the households that are now ready to begin rebuilding.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
So please stay with us, and we'll now go to Monmouth County, and Tim Hearn from United Way of Monmouth County and Tara Mafia, who is also with United Way, I think are joining us.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Tim. Monmouth County, this is our first time for a long-term recovery committee also. We have formed, I've had 3 group meetings. We have over 60 agencies and nonprofits and faith-based participating. We've had about 100 people at our meetings. We have formed 9 committees. Those committees have met at least once, if not twice. This week's big group meeting, we're going to sign off on our mission statement, officers, overall process. We set up a listserv on help communications. Hopefully we'll be up and running, fully as far as accepting intake forms and processing through the committees sometime end of the first quarter this year, March-ish. We have hopefully 2 meetings scheduled before then, and we'll get 100% up and running. We are investigating the opening up our own warehouse, given the severity of the impacts in Monmouth County, and working with a lot of different groups in the long-term recovery group. And that's about it.
Great. Thank you, Tim. And last of the long-term recovery folks with us is Ted Gooding, who is the president and CEO of Ocean Inc., and I believe co-chair of the Ocean County Long-Term Recovery Committee. Ted, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Great. Thank
you.
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Ted Gooding. I am the chair of the LTRC of Ocean County, and we're up and running. We have our committee structures in place. Our leadership has been established. We've opened a checking account, and we have money in it. We're currently working with several community groups to establish a permanent office in Ocean County. We're working with the Mayor's Association at meetings tomorrow morning to make sure they understand what's available to them and what kind of funding streams that we can count on to help us try to mitigate that devastation that happened in our community. We've established a relationship with PIC, and we have 60
Can you clarify what PIC is?
God, I knew you were going to ask that. PIC is the, I can't remember what the acronyms mean, to be honest with you right now, for some reason. But PIC is the county offices and where they train young men and women for jobs. And we are working closely with them to hire young men and women who are out of work and have been for the last 26 weeks to work in a program that was established by the state to give them jobs until the end of April. Okay? It's the Industrial Council. I can't remember what the first letter means.
That's okay.
Yeah. But anyway, so we're working with PIC, and as I said, we've hired about 40 people already who are working on disaster recovery only, and they're being paid $11.40 an hour. We have a permanent person who does the clerical support, and they're also working with weatherization. We're also working with Department of Community Affairs to replace heating units and hot water heaters throughout Ocean and Monmouth and Atlantic counties for folks who qualify who have lost those systems through the storm. That could, in fact, bring about $6,000 to $10,000 per home, providing they meet the 200% of poverty level. We're also working very closely with other nonprofits through our committee structure. We have established all of our committees. They're all in place. They're meeting biweekly. We have a monthly meeting the third Thursday of every month with the community, and we're meeting with our committees every 2 weeks, the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. So I think we're well on our way. This is new for Ocean County. I think that our committee structure is working. We've been able to connect most of our resources with the towns. We're meeting with the mayors to try and get into their respective communities to present to them what options are available, either through grants that we have through the state or through HUD grants that we're working with to get them to work in Ocean County through the CDBG program. And we're also working with the state to establish parameters to be used on income-eligible families under the CSBG program. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and we've had four public meetings, and we've had 4 community board meetings. And I think that all of those meetings are going extremely well. I'm extremely proud of what's going on with our respective chair people, because they are having regular meetings and we're communicating almost every day by email on what they're doing. So I'm proud to support that. I think we're well on our way to establishing a productive LTRC.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I want to open the conversation up now for questions. And to ask a question, folks just need to press *7 to unmute their line. This is enormously helpful. I actually wanted to ask both Ted and Tim, and at least one other person, talked about the different committees that you have within your group. And I think it might be helpful for folks to understand sort of what the range of those kinds of committees are. So maybe, Ted, if you could start, and then Tim, tell us if any differences so that you may have in Monmouth. But Ted, could you tell us what the committees are in Ocean?
Absolutely. Let me just pull it out of my list here. I keep a binder with all that stuff in it, and it's right here at my fingertips.
Yeah, Ted, you hear me? I have it.
Okay.
Ted, I have it.
You have it? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll read Monmouth. And these committees there's in the National VOAD, they have a long-term recovery guide, and in it they have a recommended committee structure. And we followed it pretty closely, not 100%, but we have an executive committee, a construction committee, unmet needs committee, health and healing committee, housing, which is unique to us. That's not a recommend or not a standard committee, but given the housing needs of Monmouth County, we formed a housing subcommittee, donation committee and volunteer committee, a communications committee, and a case management committee. I think we have one or two others.
Okay, and we've established also spiritual emotional support committee, construction committee, donations committee, case management committee, fundraising committee, technical and information computers committee, policy and advocacy committee, public relations committee, and resource directory committee. And we're working along with that. We're working with the FEMA valves to assure that we follow the structure that's pretty much outlined by the VOAD. And as I said, those committees are meeting right now biweekly and coming back with some excellent support. And they're actually doing their own research and trying. We also have already adopted the system we're going to use for tracking, which is the CAN system, which was created through Red Cross. We adopted that at our last meeting, and we're in the process now of setting those up in our respective computers via committee, so we'll know what kind of distribution has taken place to families that are in need. Because what we're finding is that some families are trying to go between nonprofit and nonprofit and getting double dips here, and we really are trying to avoid that, unfortunately. And this CAN system will help us to manage and mitigate those kinds of circumstances.
This is Janet Sharma in Bergen County. We're doing the same thing. We have essentially all of those same committees set up, and we're also coming to a unified system of case management.
Yeah, Monmouth County, we're going to adopt CAN too.
Thank you. Questions from any of the funders that are on the call? It was helpful to understand what the different committees, to see the sort of the scope and of work. You can press *7 to unmute your line.
Hi, this is Marco Navarro.
Hi, Marco.
Hi, everyone. I'm with Robert Johnson Foundation. I had a question beginning perhaps with Kathy, with the VOAD, and also the long-term recovery committees. To what extent are you all dealing with people's emotional or mental health counseling? What sort of? I know that the state, I believe, has a contract with a large agency through FEMA to contract for some social services and supports. Is that true? And do you have a sense of the status of that contract? And second, what are you all doing on the local level? I recognize folks are sort of dealing with the emergency needs that they have to for their families and all, but who is addressing, or how are you going about addressing people who may have, mental health counseling needs, for example?
This is Ted. It's my understanding that contract is up now for review.
Right.
And it hasn't been awarded yet. But locally, our spiritual and emotional support group are trying to, or they are meeting with families based on their needs and some of the applications that are coming through the nonprofits that are being referred to them for that spiritual emotional support. And one of our committee members actually called me today. Some of the things that we're doing is we're trying to get into public venues like home shows, and there's one coming up by being sponsored by the American Cancer Society in Ocean County, that we're putting our spiritual support groups in those meetings as well as any other public venues to let folks know that if they need help and spiritual or emotional support help, that we're there to help them. And as soon as that contract is solidified, we hope that we pretty much know that they will be joining our LTRCs to provide an outlet for those families to contact.
Okay, so the contract's not been approved yet, but it's still being negotiated. It's not been released, the funding or the support, right?
That's right.
Got it.
This is Tim. My understanding, they have been operating for the last couple months. In Monmouth County, is being run by the Mental Health Association, a couple others. All those members, they're part of the Health and Healing Committee, subcommittee. So they have been working in Monmouth County for the last 6 to 8 weeks, and I wasn't aware that the contract's up, but I'm assuming it's going to be extended.
In Bergen County, we want to set up a resource center we're looking for a storefront building in the middle of the affected communities where we can have it be a volunteer reception center, but also have people on hand to help with emotional counseling, or at least to provide referrals to places where people can get that, and also further information about financial resources.
This is Christy with FEMA. I just wanted to say there have been mental health folks in all of the disaster recovery centers, and there's also a disaster distress helpline that's been set up in the state.
Okay.
That's the Catholic Charities one?
No, I believe that's crisis counseling.
Yeah, it is. It's disaster crisis counseling. This is Kathy. It's run out of the Department of Mental Health, Division of Mental Health, Department of Human Services for the state, and they do put in for another grant through FEMA to extend their care, and they have done that. So they've been and they work with people within the community to do the local county mental health associations to work with them, and so that's what's been going on, and they've been out in the field every day.
Right. Thank you.
Other questions? Press star 7 to unmute your line. I was curious about the makeup of who are the folks that are on the committees. Are you seeing, are there some gaps of representation on the committees?
Well, fundraising is an issue because many of the people are from private nonprofits, and they're engaged full-time year-round in raising money for their own operations. So it's difficult to get people who are willing to transfer what they do for their own agency to the long-term recovery efforts.
And I know that's something Denise has spoken about, the need for grant writers often.
It's a matter of time. This all takes a tremendous amount of time. And any of you know a good proposal takes a lot of time, and people just don't have anyone who can do that on staff that's not already doing it.
This is Tony Moen. I'm working in a couple of the northern counties, and I'm noticing that in some of the more urban areas, it's not as easy to have representation from the faith community as it is often in rural areas. They do tend to be nonprofits, social services, the Red Cross, United Way, Salvation Army, but it's just a little more challenging sometimes to get the faith community to come into the group.
Thank you. Other questions? We heard about two very local groups in Hoboken and Jersey City. Are there other sort of municipal or small region specific long-term recovery committees that folks are saying?
There's a group in Atlantic City and Atlantic County.
Great.
Cape May is working on a long-term recovery group. There is a group in Rahway and Linden in Union County that is working, they're in the formation period. Morris County has a long-term recovery committee formed last year in Irene. They are still working cases, and they are also now beginning to work some of their cases for Sandy, but they had established their committee last year.
And that's the same for Somerset County.
Yes.
And Cumberland County is also starting a long-term recovery group as we speak, too, as well as Salem and Gloucester there. But they may be working together.
Cape May and Atlantic is, I think.
Mm-hmm. No, Cape May is separate.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Excuse me, this is Ted. Just for the information that just came in, the PIC stands for Private Industry Council.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I just couldn't get it out of my head for that moment, but that's what it is. That's what PIC means.
I'm wondering if because I heard Christy from FEMA, and I'm wondering about in your experience from FEMA, and I'm wondering, I don't know if Denise is with us, but with the long-term recovery committees, I think these will be, well, as we heard, that the Morris County group was still going, and a year later, and Bergen also. Any sense of sort of how long the committees were operating post-Katrina even?
They are still working on Katrina as we speak, 7 years. The experts have told us 3 to 5, 5 to 7 years.
And we've been in touch with Joplin, and Joplin is still up and running. They anticipate at least another year to 2 years.
I think that's helpful for people to understand and what the infrastructure is that's needed to keep them going.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point. It's a long-term recovery committee because you have the initial onslaught of people helping out and stuff and coming from out of the state and country and community, and the long-term recoveries committees are here for the long haul.
Other questions or comments?
Nina,
we have a quiet group. Oh, please, go ahead.
Nina, hi, this is Mimi Box from the
Hi, Mimi.
You mentioned or asked a question about the makeup of the committees, and I'd like to delve just a little bit further into that. And is there residential representation, and is there, I guess, local leaders, mayors or of the smaller communities within the counties on these committees?
In Bergen County, we invited the mayors or the city managers of both Little Ferry and Moonachie. Little Ferry was very responsive, and they're not attending the meetings, but they do respond when we ask for information. And we have not heard from Moonachie. There are representatives, residents from the town who are the civic leaders, the ones who really stepped up when we're running relief centers and so forth, and who know a lot of people in town and know the geography in the town. We have those people on our long-term committee.
Amy, in Monmouth County, we have several members of the community who just identify themselves as community members. They're not affiliated with any other group. And as well, we have members of municipal governments coming. And they hold different hats within the community. Some are emergency management coordinators and things like that. Although the freeholders and other members of higher government are aware of what we do, and they were invited originally to come to the kickoff and things like that, they try to not attend because they don't want to make it look like their presence is needed to sanction the ongoing operations of what we do.
In Ocean County, we do have county representation on the committee. Actually, they were the ones that pretty much kicked this thing off, so to speak. And we've asked for a permanent placement on the committees from county government because some of the rules are changing, the FEMA rules and everything else, and they get the rules first. So we need to know that, particularly on our construction committees, so that we can make sure we advise folks on the right thing and that they understand the impact the storm will have on their long-term efforts of recovery.
Nina, I have a question. This is Barbara Lawrence from the Town Foundation.
Please.
How are the individuals who are chairing these committees funding their own work? Are you just funding this out of your general operating funds, or are you receiving any kind of support for this from anybody? I heard Janet say that she has a little bit of funding that they've been able to receive, but for the most part, how are the rest of you surviving?
I will say that and I'm not sure if it's specific for operations or rollout, but there is some money that some are getting that are applying to the Governor Christie's fund that they've made some money available, but it's not. It's just, I think, a small pool of money that's available for the long-term.
And no one
recovery
has
committees.
it yet, do they?
No.
Does anyone have money from
I
the
don't think
Christie
so.
fund?
The RFP just came out.
Yeah, okay.
That continues to be a challenge, I know, particularly in areas where we're heavily impacted. There are several organizations that offer funds that we can write for grants that support different processes within the community, but very few of those grants offer any opportunity to help cover the administrative expenses within the organizations like ourselves who are doing the work. And that continues to be a shortfall, I think, for most of us.
Does anyone know how that was handled in New Orleans? Since those committees are still living that many years later?
Most of them did have to donate their time and effort. Some of them did they did recoup some of their funds later through community development block grants that came along. There was some advocacy work done to enable the government, their local government, their state and local government, to allow them to sort of take over some of the expenses through community development block grant funds as administrative costs. But we're not sure what that's going to look like here in this state. They've changed the funding stream for community development block grants, so we're not sure what that's going to look like.
Well, in Ocean County, what we've done is we've asked HUD to waive some of those requirements so that we can pull some FTEs into the system. And we have hired administrative clerical support through our PIC grant, but that grant is over at April 29th, I think. And hopefully that we'll roll those FTEs into the CDBG grant. And we have been able to support it a little bit through the CSBG grant. But that's really about it. One of the things we're doing is we're putting together a list of jobs that we believe will be an asset to this recovery effort, and we will be asking not only municipal and local but also funders if they'll support human capital as part of the grant.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Nina, this is Denise Gilliam. I just had a question if any of the groups are using the NEG grant funds to hire administrative staff, because I understand that funding runs out in the spring, and it would be really important to utilize that right away.
Denise, can you tell us what NEG stands for?
Oh, sure. It's the National Emergency Grant, and it's offered through the Department of Labor. And there are some specific requirements on that, but in the past, there has been some ability to access those grants to hire through the local workforce development and have at least administrative staff, if not other things, through those.
This is Ted again. That is the PIC grant that I spoke of earlier, where we got 60 slots, and we're using those slots.
Great.
And we're talking to our county on that also, Monmouth County.
Is that done through the Workforce Investment Board?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Thank you, Denise.
I think the downside to that, though, is that grant is over April 29th. So I've been speaking with this is Ted again, I've been speaking with them to ask them if there's any way they should extend that, because that just seems to be short-sighted to me.
Yeah. Agreed.
Great. Well, we are coming close to the end of the hour. I didn't know any other questions, any other comments, any information generally that folks would like to share. We will work to put together, Elizabeth just sent me an email, so thank you, Elizabeth Murphy, who is on top of all of this and doing such a fabulous job for us. We're going to put together a contact list for you that we'll put out on the listserv, for a contact list for funders with the contact information for the different long-term recovery committees. And we'll also, I'm going to reach out and see what we can learn about in Louisiana about the committees there and how they were funded, how their operations were funded, and perhaps some of the strategies that they use there as well.
Also, I'd like to just put in a plug. If anyone has good ideas about volunteer housing, that would be wonderful to know more about.
Can I just ask a question about that? This is Ted again. One of the things that came out in one of our meetings was that down in New Orleans, they took like warehouses and put bunks in them and put portable showers outside. Does anybody know whether that's something you could do in New Jersey?
It's a lot warmer down there.
Yeah, that's true.
Hi, this is Sue, Ocean County Val, formerly known as Bergen County Val last year with Irene. Hey, Janet, how you doing? One of the things that we're just kind of toying with, but I think it's a great possibility, is we had breakfast, me and my partner Val, Bob Tribble, with 3 of the church leaders last week, and we're setting up a volunteer housing summit with the faith-based community this Wednesday. And the concept is that if a church is willing to sign on for long-term housing for a year or more, but they may need something to make that happen, like a kitchen or a shower, to come have a conversation so that we can add those costs to upgrade their facility in the grants that we're putting out for Ocean County Long-Term Recovery. So this way there is an incentive to come on board, be part of the long-term recovery group, and they get a bonus out of it by having come together as a unified faith-based community within your counties and put in their whatever they need to be operational in the grant that you guys are writing. And it seems to be a nice win-win-win, especially since in Ocean County, we are very fortunate to have Kathy Durante, who is leading our subgroup for fundraising, and she is willing to just take in their information, add it in, so they don't each individually have to try to write a grant. So if you guys need to talk offline or something, or if there's anything I could do to help you encourage that, or if it works well with our meeting to help you duplicate it in your counties, I would be more than willing to help you do that.
And this is Christy Wright again with FEMA. I just wanted to let you all know Presbyterian Disaster Assistance, one of their missions is volunteer housing, and they are here in the JFO, and they were going to be having some internal discussions Wednesday and Thursday as far as how the role that they're willing to take as far as the coordination. We have been working on this, trying to get this coordinated throughout the state for at least a month now. So they're being addressed. Anybody who has ideas, we're certainly welcoming them. Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then we will, I want to thank everybody who joined us. We really, really appreciate you taking the time and being with us, and of course, the incredible work that you're doing. And we will continue to, I hope, be able to reach out to you as the months unfold and we learn more and are doing more. As I said at the top of our call, we will take a break next week and then be back at the end of the month with a webinar, and we'll send out the information on that through the listserv. If you've got questions, comments, information, materials that would be helpful for folks, please don't hesitate. You can send them out directly yourself on the listserv, or you can send them to Elizabeth, and we can send them out for you. And always remember that you can also ask questions confidentially that way if you prefer, which we know some folks do. And I just want to again thank Kathy and all of our long-term recovery committee chairs and co-chairs for the work that you're doing and for taking the time to be with us, and Margaret Waldock and for talking us through some of the findings that they had from their meeting, and I know there'll be more information coming along those lines as well. So if there's nothing else at this point, then we will wrap up our call, say thank you, and wish everybody a good week, and we'll convene again on the 28th of January. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Please stand by.